This is Julie Pearson, Little Thunder, with the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program at Oklahoma State University. Today is March 2nd, 2020, and I'm interviewing Erica Martez in Tulsa, Oklahoma, as part of our Oklahoma Women's Artist Series. Erica, you're a fabric artist and designer with a BA from Oral Roberts University and another degree from Colorado State University.
Yes.
You also work for Greenwood Leadership Academy.
I do.
And you're known in your artwork for bold colors, fabric designs that often look like mixed media paintings.
Yes.
And the message that you try to send through your art about pride and resistance against social injustice. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me.
Thank you for having me.
Where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I was actually born on the Army base on Fort Carson, and I grew up in that same area most of my life. It was a very interesting place. I always tell people that I grew up in Colorado before it was cool. So it was just a lot of things, having a family who were a bunch of implants, and my sister and I were actually native. So it was a lot of different experiences.
Cool. Yeah, I was wondering what it was like growing up in that area.
Yeah.
Of course, you could see the mountains from there too.
Yes. Mountains are in very plain sight. It's like part of the backdrop of the city in Colorado Springs. So that was fun. I mean, it's like anything that you see every day, you kind of get a little tired of it, but it's still beautiful. Yeah.
What did your folks do for a living?
My dad, well, my parents met in the Army, so they're both veterans. My dad he still works for the Army. He is a civilian. I think he does some type of accounting. And my mom was an educator.
And you kind of escaped having to travel from base to base.
Yes. My mom actually got out of the Army when I was probably about 1. And then my dad finagled and did some things, so we didn't have to move as much. But I'm still very familiar with the military life, just not exactly familiar with the military brat situation as far as like moving around.
Right. Do you have any brothers or sisters, and where are you in the sequence?
I have a sister, and we are 9.5 years apart, and I am the oldest.
What kind of presence did the African American community have in Colorado Springs?
That's funny. Virtually, well, in Colorado Springs, kind of non-existent. That's why I say that I grew up in Colorado Springs before it was cool, because there was pockets of African Americans there, and we all kind of knew each other, but it was kind of a migrant situation. You rarely find people in my parents' generation who are actually natives of Colorado Springs. It's our generation who are the natives, and so you see like kind of an infusion of the South and the East Coast and the West Coast, because everyone is from somewhere else because of the military. We have 5 military bases in Colorado Springs. So it was kind of like you had to know where to go to find the black people, basically.
But kind of an interesting mixture to be exposed
Yes.
to, cultural mixture.
Yes.
Exposed to. So what church or cultural experiences were important for you there?
Well, I grew up in church. I grew up in the traditional black church, holiness. Where everything is pretty much a sin, and so church was very much a part of my life growing up. We went to church at least 3 nights a week, different reasons, different things. So I had my school life and whatever sport I was involved in, and then I had church life, and it was almost like it's like a different person in a different world. So it was very important, and now I'm kind of finding my own path as far as spirituality versus religion.
You're not too far from Denver in Colorado Springs. Did
No.
you get a chance to make trips to Denver?
All the time.
Okay.
One thing I love about my parents is they were very big on exposing us to things. So it was nothing to just drive up and down the highway, go to Castle Rock, go to Denver, Aurora, all those areas and experience those things. So I still have that in me now, where it doesn't bother me to take an hour and a half drive somewhere. It's just what I've done for my whole life.
Adventure zone there.
Yes.
What was the creative environment like in your home?
Ooh. That one, I don't really know if there was. Well, it wasn't. I mean, my parents aren't and weren't artists, but there's a very strong like musical influence. My mom was very theatrical, and she was into a lot of things like the way that like the wicker things that I have in my home are her influence. So it wasn't a strong presence of like art, like in the traditional sense, but it was always a I was always encouraged to be creative. My parents knew early on that I was different. They knew that I was creative. So they didn't really know the magnitude, and I don't think I did, but they kind of always encouraged me to push myself and find things that I was interested in.
What are your first memories of seeing art, however you would define it?
Art is all around me. As far as fashion, which is like I don't want to say niche because I've found ways to, if I want to do it, I do it. If I love it, I'll make it work. But my first memories of fashion, I was 16, and my mom took me to an all-black fashion show put on by the Ebony magazine, and it traveled to our city. And it was just amazing to see an entire show, models, designers, everyone who looked like me. And I just remember these were these beautiful, beautiful people, and they were showing off clothes that they had made, and I fell in love. I started stealing my mom's magazines and trying to copy the sketches and do my own, and I hid them under the bed and things like that. And it was something very intimate and personal for me. I didn't tell anybody until years later. I think I told one person, and she kind of like laughed at it. But other than that, it was just something that I kept like my personal little place where I would go in myself.
Right, that was your eureka moment, kind
Yes.
of. So, what exposure did you have to sewing growing up?
None.
None. Okay.
None. I think my great grandmother sewed, but my mom and my grandmother certainly did not. So funny story about that. I learned how to sew in 3 weeks at Clary Sage. As soon as I learned how to do anything, I just started doing it on my own and became pretty good. But the only thing about sewing is it's so technical, and the technicality of it can be so pressuring and frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't always enjoy it, but I just think of it as like a means to an end. Like I don't like to drive. I don't like the actual act of driving, but I enjoy getting to where I want to be. So that's kind of how I look at it.
So when you attended elementary school, were you at a public school then, just outside of the base, or?
I was in a mix. I started, they call it like K4, K5, basically pre-K, kindergarten. I was at a Baptist private school. I think I was there for first grade too. Second grade, I was in public school in a suburb near the base.
So in your like elementary school equivalent, or even junior high, what were your art experiences?
I didn't really have any as far as like traditional paintings. My exposure to art was through dance, through music at church. Kind of that being more, I think I did some acting too, like that type of art.
Uh-huh.
I was really involved in like dance teams, and I was really involved with like that kind of scene and music and things like that at that age.
So until the fashion show, you weren't really like drawing at home or doing any of that stuff.
I wanted to so bad. No, I wanted to be that kid that was just drawing. I would doodle, but I don't think it was very impressive. So if anything, I was more of a writer at that time. Like I would write to express myself, or I would just totally zone out, to be honest. I was definitely that kid where it was like Bueller, like, hey, are you there? And I'm like on a beach somewhere. So yeah, I was that child.
How about high school? Any exposure to art in high school or fashion after you had that turning point?
I went to a Christian school that was put on through my church. And then I went to a traditional high school for junior and senior year. No, other than like art class, but I don't even think I took that.
Right.
So no.
So how did you end up attending Oral Roberts University?
It was kind of one of those things where it's like they're not going to tell you where to go, but it's strongly encouraged through my church. I just wanted to get out of Colorado. I didn't care how. I didn't care what school I went to. I had a friend who went the year before I did. And so I was like, okay, well, maybe. And I was heavily into church and all that at the time. So I thought it would be the best route for me to go. I actually wanted to go to an HBCU. I wanted to go to Florida A&M University, which is my mom's alma mater. Sometimes I still regret that decision. But overall, I'm happy with it. I mean, there is no perfect place. So that's how I ended up there. I came to Tulsa for, what do they call it, like a student weekend or something. I don't even remember what it's called. But I came and I don't know, I just felt really at home on the campus. It was nothing like I've ever seen before. And I just felt like I should be there. So I pursued it and I went.
Yeah, and it really is a pretty impressive campus. So you had like all that continuity in terms of church and religious background, but the cultural climate is so different. How did you react to that? What were your impressions?
And OU or just in Oklahoma? Oklahoma is, ooh. I mean, obviously, I guess it can't be too bad because I'm still here, but I did take some breaks. Oklahoma is different. It's behind in a lot of ways. It's progressive in a way that you don't expect, but very primal and primitive in ways that you would expect it to be more forward. That's kind of how I think of Oklahoma. It's kind of like that grandparent who is still like your favorite, but then there's parts of that person that are still stuck in their ways, and you're just like, okay, I'm just gonna leave you alone on that aspect. So that's how I think of Oklahoma.
That's well put. And you didn't have any extended family or anybody really that you knew when you came?
Literally had to look on a map to figure out where Tulsa, Oklahoma was. Like, I knew Oklahoma. Like, I knew it was a state. I knew it existed somewhere in the middle of the country, but I still had no idea. And there was that part of me that thought that there were still covered wagons. When I was driving out north and I saw somebody riding a horse, I was like, oh, okay. But, yeah, I came here by myself.
And no exposure to native cultures probably before coming here.
No. None whatsoever.
So,
well, I can't say that. My mom did take me to museums because Colorado had a strong native presence, especially before. So my mom made sure I went to museums and things like that. So I can't say absolutely none, but no interactions with natives as getting to know them and it sounds really ignorant, but I was like, oh, you guys are still here. I'm just gonna be honest.
So, why did you pick, you majored in sociology at ORU, is that correct? Or that's CSU?
CSU.
So what did you major in at ORU?
I majored in social work.
Social work,
yes.
Okay. And why did you pick that field?
To be honest, it was my fourth or fifth change. And I wanted to help people. I wanted to infiltrate the world like everyone does. When you go to college, you have these doughy-eyed dreams of what you can do and how you want to make your mark. And so I wanted to do something that was more practical. Honestly, ORU, I was tired of this dreamland ORU bubble kind of experience. I wanted something real because I'm not going to live on this campus forever. And not everyone is going to have the same perspective that I'm gotten so accustomed to at this point. So I wanted something real. I remember going to the classes and finally feeling okay, these are real people. We're not all Bible-toting, just, sitting around playing worship music in the grass. We are real people who have real emotions and express ourselves. And so the teachers were real. The teachers exposed us to what tragedy and what that means to be an advocate for someone who cannot advocate for themselves. So that's why I chose that major and stuck with it, because it was unchanged several times.
And there's sort of an international student population.
Yes.
At ORU
Very
as
strong.
well. Did you have some contact with
I
international students?
did. That was probably my favorite and most treasured experience. I don't really connect with those people as much, but through social media, I still have like a glimpse into their life and will reach out. But I actually lived on the basketball floor for the females in Claudius, C7 forever. It was a private floor, and so I lived with women from all over the world, literally. I think we had some from Brazil, Spain, Australia. There was a strong African population at the school, and so I loved that. That was amazing to me.
What are some of the takeaways that you got from that experience?
Seeing the world through other people's eyes, seeing how people who are not from America look at America, seeing how pompous I have been, and I didn't really want to see it that way, but also just seeing that at the end of the day, we're all humans and we are all people and we are all looking and searching for the same things, just maybe trying to treat it in different ways and through different experiences. So that's what I love. And I was always taught to accept people. I was always taught to explore. And so like learning how they did things and learning more about their culture just by getting to know them made me feel like I had experience with that place. And so that's what kind of the major takeaways. They were my family because we saw each other all the time. Like we were the smallest floor because it was just one person per room. And then we had like a living room kind of like this in the middle. So it was like this, like there was a dorm here, living room here, and then a dorm on the other side. So we had like a common space, and then we had another space where we all just hang out together. So those moments are long gone, but they're still very much treasured for me.
Right.
Yeah.
And no art classes at ORU. No exposure to fabric art. You're not doing any of that yet. Are you doing anything creative on the side while you're in college?
No. It was kind of something that just lay dormant for me.
Uh-huh.
I didn't really realize how much I was into it until later. But no, I mean, other than just like singing in church and at school and watching other people do things, I didn't have like a hands-on experience in art, even in college.
All right. And then you end up going to Colorado State University. What drew you to that school?
Ooh, that experience was not a traditional experience at all for me. I didn't live on campus. I was actually married at the time, and I was actually in a very abusive relationship. So me even being in that school was not my choice. It was something that my ex chose for me. It was one of those kind of living vicariously through you type situations. For some reason, he was like, because I'm not going to lie, my ORU experience was more of me finding me than getting a degree. Mm-hmm. So my GPA wasn't the highest. I was just living my best life until I decided that I wanted to graduate. Mm-hmm. And so he looked at my, I guess, accomplishment and he diminished it because he didn't have one. And so he's like, well, if you want to get a job, you need to have a higher GPA. If you want to go to grad school, I didn't want to do that. But in order to please him, I went. And so I did complete kind of like a non-traditional way, and I got a second degree in a year. It was like an accelerated program off campus in a different city. I think I did go to like Pueblo. Mm-hmm. I had a class on campus like maybe one semester, but that was a completely different place in my life. I wasn't even who I am. I wasn't me then. And so, but I remember school at that time was my escape. It was my escape from my relationship. It was escape from kind of the situation that I allowed myself to be in. Being around people who I studied like mostly criminal justice classes. So learning how people think and operate and engage and interact with each other was amazing. But also I learned more about like criminal justice, and I thought about being a cop and I was like, girl, we are not running on no track. So we're not going to do that. But that was a different experience. I surprised myself. That's when I learned that I could actually focus in and be really engaged in something when literally all hell is breaking loose around me. I would, I don't know how graphic I guess I can get, but I was getting pretty much the shit beat out of me, and mentally and physically. And I would go to class and ace the test, get like one or two, or 100% on the test, one or two wrong, and I would go home and go back to hell. So I found a strength in there, and it took a while, but that was part of the reason I got out of that space.
That's incredible. So what kind of helped you get out?
It was, for me, working in social work.
You've had a number of jobs, but
Yeah.
you've gotten sort of your first
Yeah, I was
job.
actually, when I graduated from CSU, I was a social worker. I did more of case management for adults who were children who were developmentally disabled. And so I was in that world and I knew all the signs, but for me, I'm very good at compartmentalizing. But I was in such denial that I didn't even think that I was being a victim of domestic violence. I could see the signs and I can identify everyone else's problems, but I could not see it for myself. And so when I got out, it was more of an epiphany situation because of the church influence. It was always like, well, your husband treats you that way because you don't honor him. You don't respect him enough. You're not submitting enough. And I was doing so much where I literally lost me. And I was resenting him and resenting myself for being this person that he wanted me to be, or so I thought, and it wasn't good enough. And so it was a situation, it was one night where he wouldn't let me sleep. And one thing I don't play about is my sleep. And I had been sick that whole day and he just wouldn't let me rest. And I just woke up and I just said, you don't care about me. And he said, you're right, bitch, I don't. And that whole day was just issue after issue. And I just decided this is not where I need to be. I was completely isolated, but miraculously, I guess 2 weeks before that day, I was kind of allowed to reconnect with my family. And it was like part of my way out. He actually told me to reach out to my sister. And she was like, why don't you just come over? And at that time, I was living in the city where he grew up, which is like 45 minutes away. So I drove all the way from Pueblo to North Colorado Springs. And on the way there, I was just like, you can't go back. This is your out. Like, if you don't get out right now, you are never going to leave this person. And I called him, left a voicemail. He did not answer. And I just told him, like, I'm not going to do this anymore. And it's been 6 years. It was a very hard journey. Having to process that. I immediately reached out to like the equivalent of Divis, these resources for women who are being victimized by their spouses. And I don't know where the strength came from, but it enveloped me. And once I decided that I was done, I was done. He is a mentally challenged person. He has a double diagnosis, some severe things. And he would just, he was actually in the mental hospital and he was calling me all the time. I asked that I would be taken off of his list. They were just like, you're his wife, so he is allowed to call you. So it took so much to do that. I actually procured a restraining order that I had to go and make permanent. I had to sit there. Like, he actually came to court. So I had to sit there and say all the reasons why I did not feel safe with this person. And of course, he violated the order twice. And I had to advocate for myself while he was listening and say why I wanted his bond raised so that he could not access me. Because he knew exactly where I lived. He knew I went right back to my parents. So I was just a sitting duck. So very challenging experience.
Well, you are working some different jobs using your degree once you break free. And then you, I guess, end up going to Clary Sage. So what was behind that decision to go to Clary Sage?
I had left another serious relationship and I was just tired of not pursuing what I wanted. I decided that I wanted to do fashion. I decided that I wanted to do it. And the other person I was with decided, no, it needs to be about me. It needs to be about what I want. You need to wait. And I left him.
So you were having conversations with him, though, about, I really want to do this.
Yes. Because at this point I was, like, after leaving my ex, I started doing art again. I started doing abstract photos.
Okay.
Actually, I was doing abstract pieces while we were married, but he actually destroyed them.
Okay.
So that kind of killed that for a while. And then after I left that, it was like I just woke up like I was this person. I changed my hair because everything I did and however I dressed was all for him. And then once he was gone and out of my life, at least enough for me to realize who I am again, this is like the sun coming out after a rainy day. It was like, oh, okay, now I can see. So I was doing pieces. I did start sketching, and that's kind of when I started on this journey of pursuing fashion. Then I got into another relationship because I was not healed. So, yeah, and so I put that on hold. And then after I left him, my mother passed away, and I just decided to live life for me. And that's when I ended up at Clary Sage. And I just fell in love with it.
And you were back in Oklahoma at that point, obviously.
I had coming back and forth for a relationship. I was in Colorado for 4 years. And then I had come back. I think I did come back to like be in that relationship. And I stayed here for about 8 months. Got deep in this relationship. And then my mom passed away. So I was home for about 5 months. And then I came back. And I got tired of being reminded constantly of what I lost. And I needed a place to kind of be myself and live for me again. I have this habit of allowing people to kind of superimpose what they want on me. And I begin to be a reflection and projection of what they want. And so I got tired. So Tulsa was familiar. So I came back to Tulsa. And that's when I pursued fashion.
So what was it like when you got to Clary Sage? What kind of a base did you get?
Like I said, I learned how to sew in 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
That was like my first class. So yeah, 3 weeks. Clary Sage operates, it's like that program is like 11 months and it's like very intense. I can't even say classes, they're like workshops. You're focused on one thing for 3 weeks and you're there from 9 a.m. to 2. And whatever that is, and it's like a cycle that just like ever just goes. So whenever you start the program, you just happen to start on that day and that's just the first day of whatever class you happen to fall in. And the first day for me was sewing. And it was like this serendipitous thing.
Did you have a machine?
I didn't, but they gave us one on like the second day or first day or something. So I just took this thing home. I literally like read everything about it. I memorized all the parts, all the pieces, because this was just something I wanted to do. And then as soon as I learned how to do like a semi-straight stitch, I started going to fabric stores. I started getting patterns, was way in over my head, but I fell in love. So, and they gave us kind of everything, pattern making, sketching, it was like the keys to open up stuff that was in me that I really didn't know. Because I would sketch, but to me, I didn't think it was good enough because I didn't have like the body proportion. So once I discovered what a croquis was, oh, you couldn't tell me nothing. So,
Which, do you want to explain to us?
Okay, so a croquis is actually like a form that you draw on paper. It's just a body, and you can choose to trace the body or just the clothes on top of the body. So it gives you like a molding kind of place to start, basically. So once I discovered what a croquis is, oh, I was in love, and I was sketching, and I was doing it. So yeah.
So you're not having to work during this time. You had enough money set aside that you could.
Well, I made it through. I will just say that my dad supported me, and that was something he did not want to do, but he did. And so towards the end, it got real rough, real shaky. I did get a job, and I had to compromise because it's a Monday through Thursday thing, and 9 to 2. So it doesn't leave room for anything else. I really had to take that time to commit myself for this, and it was very hard to advocate for myself to say, hey, this is what I want to do. So
that was a great gift.
Yeah.
So what are some of the first things that you made?
Oh, I don't really have those pieces anymore, but I can definitely like point them out on social media. So I designed this kind of romper, and it was a romper with a train, and it's still to this day my favorite thing that I've ever made. And I picked out this really cool floral pattern fabric to actually sew it up in, and I was in love. Like I really produce something from concept to an actual tangible piece.
Had you seen any rompers with trains before?
No.
I was going to say, I think that was maybe a little bit in advance of, I mean, I've seen them since.
Yeah. And if I would have like kept going.
What year was it?
2016.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was not happening then, but I totally loved it. I don't have that piece anymore. I think it got, I don't know what happened, but that's, that was like.
That was your first piece.
My first piece.
And you haven't started creating your own fabric yet. You're just buying fabric for these purposes.
Yeah.
Do you try to sell anything? How long does it take before you think about selling some pieces that you're creating?
Anytime I post something, it's kind of up for sale. But one thing that kind of happened is I got commissioned to do a lot of things, which is cool. But it added a lot of pressure that I wasn't ready for.
After you got out of Clary Sage, you got commissions.
Yeah, I got commissions, but I was not ready.
Was it like based on social media that you? Okay.
Social media and kind of word of mouth. I wasn't ready though. Like it's so much that goes along with that. Like when you're creating something just because you want to do it, it's just your energy. It's just your ideas. But then when it's someone else who has paid money or at least put something on it, it's their energy. It's what they want. So it's not really your piece. You're just kind of the person who was contracted to do it. It's not like coming from you. So that was hard to navigate. Very hard. I guess I really wasn't focused on money. I just wanted to do a good job. So I made some mistakes, pissed some people off over the years, but I think I've grown and I'm not in a place where I really like do commissions anymore. I kind of want to do just, hey, I made this. If you like it, hit me up. If not, I'll keep it.
And it's hard to figure out the business side.
It is.
So hard.
Very hard.
What are some of your takeaways so far?
I actually did what do they call it? A residency with OOHRP, and I forgot the name of the program.
Okay.
But they taught us to do more of the business side of art.
Cool.
So I've learned about your elevator speech, and I had to do that. I forget the terms, but I had to do like that 30-second presentation of yourself with all you see is pictures on the screen, and you have to talk. Did all that, and so I feel a little bit more confident. Still struggle with like pricing and navigating contracts and all that, but I still feel more equipped. So,
how do you approach your pricing?
It depends on what it is. A lot of times, if it's like a custom piece, like I've gotten into kind of reconstruction of clothing, repurposing, if you will. So I would take denim and actually take a pair of jeans and cut the crotch out and flip it up and do some sewing, and hey, it's a shirt now. So it's a pair of jeans that I got from the thrift store, so it's not like that cost me a lot of money, but I incorporate like time. If I want to make $20 an hour off of this piece, I charge $20 per hour. Or just depends on how much I have to actually put in, if I have to buy fabric, if I have to do anything out of my own personal kind of funds or resources, then it goes up from there. And then if it's a piece, like an art piece or something, then I do kind of the cost of the supplies along with how much I want to do per hour.
And that's an important kind of trend right now, is repurposing materials. What else do you like to repurpose?
I repurpose bags. I've repurposed, well, I wouldn't say repurpose. I've just kind of like refixed them because it's still a bag at the end of the day. I'm really into denim. I've done some jackets. I wish I had more. I don't have any here because they're all gone. Yeah, they're sold. Most of the time when I did a jacket, it was for someone. So they're gone. Yeah, it's just, denim is like my love. I love denim. I love how it feels. I love like the fun things you can do. It's kind of a hard, difficult fabric to work with, but it's also very, very fun. So, yeah.
And when did you first experiment with making your own fabric designs? When did that happen?
I learned that through Clary Sage. We discovered amazing website called Spoonflower, where you can take your own designs, whether it's a picture or something you drew, and send it to them. As long as it's an original, it can be anything. And you can print it out however much you want. And then that's when I started doing that.
So basically you were going back to painting some of your, because I've noticed some of your fabrics, they just look so fantastic. They look like mixed media paintings.
Yeah.
So you were, it's like kind of going back to the painting process for this.
Yeah.
And then using that.
Yeah, I would use spoon flour, or I've had times where I would actually just paint on fabric. That makes it difficult though when you're actually trying to sew things. Like it's not going to be a very comfortable garment for someone to wear for a very long period of time. So it's easier just to take an image and have it printed on fabric than sewing with fabric that's been painted on, if that makes sense.
Right, yeah, it does. And in the beginning, were you designing just for women or for men and women, or?
I pretty much stay true to women. I know how a woman's body moves, how it feels. I just feel more comfortable. I've done men's like when I started with jackets, I started on men's jackets. So when I actually make something from concept, it is tailored towards a woman and a certain type of woman. I design for women who are bold, who are not afraid of color, who are not afraid to piss people off, who are not afraid to be everything that they say women or black women are, like the stereotype. We own it and we rock that shit. So that's who I design for. I design for, I design stuff that I like, stuff that I would wear. So I'm all of those things. So that's my aesthetic and my target market. I've tried to get into kids, just not my thing. I want to do men's, but I would need someone else to help me because I don't know what it's like to be a man. And I don't want to be honest. It's just different. When I'm taking measurements on a woman, I know like the peak points I want to hit. Men, I don't know.
And that's fine. We need women designing for women too. Have you had your own fashion shows yet? Have you had?
I've had some where
Talk about your first fashion show.
Ooh, my first fashion show was a bit of a disaster, but it wasn't like mine. It was just something that I was like, hey, I'm going to do this. And I didn't even really have a piece that was well made. I just did it.
I'm going to contribute something.
Yeah, I contributed something. And to me, it was like amazing. And now I look and was like, that was really crappy. But hey, I did it. It was good to kind of see what that feels like to dress a model and to like actually have creative control. Because, the model is just like a canvas that is a person.
So you're deciding the hairdo too? And
hair, makeup, what shoes they're going to wear, the accessories. You really have creative control on everything. So that felt cool because I'm an Aries and I like to be in control and I like to run things. So that was fun. So that was my first experience. And then it's like, once I did that one, it was just like, whoa. I've had so many, I don't even remember all of them. Like, I just remember the anxiety that comes with them. I'm somewhat of a real procrastinator. So I've learned to face that challenge of procrastinating and like, you can't just wait. You have to create constantly. Therefore, you can always just be ready to present instead of making something the night before because that's hell. So yeah, that was that. I had my own show. Last year was Black Moon. It was our year anniversary of being a collective. We had it at Chimera, and so my contribution to the show, I did like some of my pieces, but I also did a show where I was featured only. So that was amazing. Yeah. That was probably the show that I'm most proud of because the pieces were all like authentically me. I was still sewing up until that day, but I wasn't as pressed. I wasn't frantic. I wasn't stressed. It was all things that kind of flowed. And then if it didn't feel good, I just didn't finish it or I didn't put in the show. Mm-hmm. But it was something I was very proud of at the end of the day and very happy. And it was awesome.
What was the best compliment you got during that show?
For me, the best compliment was the way the models felt in the clothes. When we had rehearsals and we had our fittings, it was just seeing them like in the mirror, taking pictures of themselves. Like, yes, I need to buy this. That was probably the best compliment because
for sure,
their opinion doesn't really matter. They just have to look good. But when they actually say like, yo, I dig this and I feel good in this, that pretty much trumped anything anyone else could say to me about anything I made.
Right. And then, it's not like you don't have a day job too, right?
Right.
Because you teach at the Greenwood Leadership Academy.
Yes.
How long have you been there?
I've been there since August of this year. I'm not new to teaching, but I'm new to teaching at GLA. It's a balance. I've had a lot of like life happen in this month or the months in this year. So I'm kind of having to go back to my love of art. It's just kind of one of those things where it has like its ebbs and flows.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Do you have summers too?
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm looking
That'll be a
very much
productive time.
yes, looking forward. But I've just learned like you just have to make time for the things that you love.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm using my energy to do.
So talk a little bit about Black Moon Collective. I understand you were an early founding member. How did it come about, and how has it impacted your life?
Whew. Okay. I kind of want to answer the question backwards, but I won't.
Sure.
I won't. I got involved. Actually, I have a really good friend, Alexander Taman, who's kind of, he's like a well-known artist here. And so I was kind of just helping him like set up. He was like, oh yeah, I got this art show at, one of the garages at Tulsa Artist Fellowship.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, whatever. And so he was like, you should present some stuff. So I'm helping set up, and wasn't really a member. It wasn't really a thing. So let me go back. So basically, Black Moon was really supposed to be a one-night show at an art crawl in March of 2018. And it was just a place for Black artists to present their work because Tulsa has gotten better in the last couple of years, but it wasn't really a place or space to be a Black artist. Like you could be a Black female artist or a male Black artist, but you really couldn't just be a Black artist and get opportunities. So Black Moon was supposed to be a show. That was it. They just came up with the name, because it means new beginnings. Like the new moon is a Black moon. You don't see the moon, but there's all these changes and new things happening, and it's a space and time for you to release and manifest and do those things. So actually that show, I did not present anything. I was just kind of hanging out. I think I painted a jacket for that time, and that was it. And then that show turned into like 2 or 3 other shows. And so I was kind of in the crew.
Still in Tulsa?
Yeah.
It was just...
I was like in the crew, but not official, because we were still deciding what this was and who we were. And so by the end of it, it was like, oh, I guess I'm in this. So been rocking with it for 2 years, like this month. Shout out to Black Moon. And Beth Henley. So how it has impacted my life. Black Moon has given me so many opportunities that I would not have had I not had the opportunity to be in this space. We've done things in Oklahoma City. We've been local, like as far as Oklahoma, but so many opportunities. So many people know my name. So many people are familiar with my art. And I've been given a platform to even speak on things that are important to me because I am a part of Black Moon. And I'm so grateful because I know that experience does not come to everyone. I'm not the best. I'm not the only artist. But for some reason, I've been given this gift and this group of people to not only share art with, but also have like a family community vibe with. Like we have all the stuff that families have. We quarrel, we disagree, we kind of separate, go our own ways, and then we reconvene. But when we get together, this group of people, we are so powerful and we are strong, and we have our own quirks and our own things, and we find ways to kind of gel together, and we are really doing things for Tulsa. I get a lot of messages when I post things about Black Moon. They're like, you guys are making history. One of the things we first did as a collective was we went to Crystal Bridges and we saw, oh my gosh, it's something of a nation. Oh, okay, really bad at names. But it was this exhibit of art that was being created during the Civil Rights movement, so 50s and 60s. And that was the moment where we were like, we really have to do this. Because now people like...
You went as a group.
Yeah, we went as a group.
Wow.
Like, it was like a field trip. And so we all drove up together and we were just looking at all of this art that was created in a time that was so tumultuous and chaotic for Black people. And it was so much transitioning happened, but it was so much pain and sacrifice that was taking place. And these people were creating pieces that had us in tears. Some made me laugh, some made me cry. And I saw, it was an exhibit of fashion art. And I was like, okay. That day literally changed my life.
So there were even some fashion elements in this show.
Yeah. It was amazing. I was just like, whoa, like, I was kind of looking for a sign on what I should do and how I should pursue this. And some pieces were sewn, and then some were like painted on, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then there were big, huge fabric art that was like, it had to be draped because it was just too big to be hung, and it was like beautiful. And so I was like, okay, this is it. Like I said, that moment changed my life. It was amazing. That's part of the reason I'm still doing this, for all the ups and downs that being an artist and just a human can kind of bring to you. It was an amazing experience, and that gelled us as people, gelled us as artists. It gelled us as Black Moon. That's kind of when we solidified ourselves and we really decided to pursue this. So, yeah.
So how have you been received, do you think, by the, first of all, by the African American community here in Tulsa? So what kind of impact do you think Black Moon has had so far on the African American community here in Tulsa?
Not to toot our own horn, but beep beep. It's crazy. We have become like small town celebrities in a way. There's some more than others. It's like this like influencer thing. Like they want us to show up, and we'll show up. Like one of us or two of us will show up at an event. It's like, oh, Black Moon's in the house. I'm like, okay, ow. But more than that, more than like the fun stuff, it's like we're making art that matters. We're making our voices heard, and we're giving opportunities to people to do what they want to do. We just had an event at Gilcrease, which never happens. And so we went to like the Gilcrease after hours, and we were like on the program, and someone came up to me and was like, are you guys accepting new artists? And they were showing us our art, and I just value that. Like all that other stuff, yeah, buy my art, great. But when someone looks up to you in a place where they want to show you their art and they want you like your opinion on it, I'm like, oh my gosh, like that is the most like gratifying and humbling thing that anyone can do, because it means they see you enough and they trust you, even though they don't know you, to like be vulnerable and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. Like, do you think I could be good enough? And so I always make sure that I try to have conversations with those people, and like I get to know them and really give them genuine time and space, because it's kind of amazing. So it's like we are being artists and showing people what an artist is, because people are like, you're an artist, like what does that mean? Like you just sit at home and paint all day? Like what that means to be an artist, and then using our art to speak out about things and actually have a voice. And so it gives us opportunities like the one I have today to actually speak not just about my art, but about my life and my experiences and why I do what I do. And so it's given us so many things. Like we have presented in so many places. We've had art shows at the Brady Mansion. We've had art shows at Living Arts, Tulsa Artist Fellowship, like exclusive, dope things like rooftop parties, and they hire these cool DJs, and you get to do all this stuff, and like, oh yeah, I make art. Go look at it. It's over there. Buy it, please. But it's a part of my life that I never thought I'd ever be in. And so maybe 20 years from now or 30 years, maybe I will be someone who is looked at like as like a person who made an impact in art and in Tulsa. That's cool. I just want to be the person, but that's like the impact. So yeah.
That's wonderful. So when you are making things, what is your favorite thing kind of to make?
It depends on what I'm focused on, honestly.
It changes.
Yeah, it changes. I'm definitely an Aries. I'm definitely a person who kind of like, oh, I want to do this. And then I'm hyper focused on one thing, and then that could change in 3 months. So I don't know if I really have a favorite. It's kind of just what I want to accomplish at that time, what my intentions are.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm intending on just making as much fabric pieces or denim like recreations, that's what I'm focused on. If I'm into color pouring and abstract pieces, that's my favorite. It's just whatever I'm working on at the moment is what I invest my time, my resources, and my heart into.
What's a project that you're excited about that's coming up?
I don't really know. I'm actually coming off of a sabbatical from Black Moon. I just came back like November, January-ish that time. So this is the show we just had with Gilcrease was the first time that I presented in about 3 months.
Oh wow!
So we have a meeting tomorrow. So to be determined. Stay tuned. No, right now I'm just excited about getting back into art and balancing being like a Superman versus Clark Kent type life. I've also done like modeling and all that. So whatever kind of speaks to me is what I'm excited about, and what I've got coming up, I'm still working on that.
So when you're doing the modeling and you're wearing those shoes, how has that influenced your thinking as a designer?
Well, when I'm a model, I'm not a runway model. I'm more photography, body positivity focused. So people see me and more of me than they probably want. I've definitely slowed down because of teaching. But that was something I did more for myself. And it made me appreciate bodies more. Mm-hmm. And it made me, I'm one of those people I always say, I'm a fashion designer, but I hate to wear clothes. So it made me more mindful of what it means to like wear something. You're like, oh my God, can you just take these pictures? Because how you feel about what you wear reflects in photographs. It reflects on your face. And so if you're uncomfortable, it shows that. So it gave me more empathy for my models, really. Mm-hmm. And like, okay, I probably shouldn't make something completely out of plastic, even though I have done that. So maybe I should give them something and just put the plastic on top, because they're probably like cussing me out in their heads. And I'm all about connection and community, and I want you to work with me again. So this gave me more empathy.
Right. And do you also take photographs yourself?
Or just I can.
Your work?
Yeah, I can like take photographs, like if I'm just working on something, but I usually leave that piece to my photography friends.
Okay. So let's talk about your process and techniques a little bit more. And what kinds of dyes that you use for your fabric design? Are they commercial dyes or homemade?
They're commercial dyes.
Okay.
I play with a lot of things. I would use acrylic and with like a fabric medium, or sometimes I would use like the pre-mixed, but I have done ink. I really like how ink kind of absorbs into the fabric. Cotton works best when you're doing that, and denim works really well too. Mm-hmm. But I really like, if I drip dye, kind of how the fabric absorbs it and the color kind of like blossoms like a watercolor would. So I really appreciate that. I think I answered the question.
And you haven't worked with silk too much?
No. I don't really enjoy silk. Silk is kind of, well, it's also a little bit of murder. Silk does come from worms that are killed while they're making the little cocoons. So I'm not totally like vegan or anything like that, but I just think that's a sad process, and it's so delicate and expensive. So I'm not really a big fan of silk. I like to appreciate it from afar just because it's so soft and dainty, but I'm not even that person. Like, don't buy me silk.
Yeah.
You'd be mad at me because it'd be ripped or stained or something. So.
Right. So that's important to you too, that something can be durable and wearable. And
yes.
Do you ever use stamps?
No.
You know, like the leather stamp. Okay.
No, never use a stamp. I use a lot of things like with my hands. I like to cut things, tear things up. I'm usually like taking something literally by the seams and kind of deconstructing it and reconstructing it. Um, yeah, no stamps. Usually just brushes or fingers, whatever I have at my disposal. But I don't really like to emboss anything.
And your own sewing machine is what?
It's actually not here. It's getting serviced. It's a Baby Lock Journey. It's like one of the Cadillacs of sewing machines. I wish I could show you, but don't have her here right now. Baby Lock is a brand that's actually an industrial sewing brand. It's like you go in to buy a Baby Lock, it's like you're buying a car pretty much. So that was Baby Lock was my first machine, but I was able to upgrade from like a basic one to one that's digital. It does embroidery. It does all kinds of things. You can even like sew by itself and stuff like that. So yeah, I love that thing.
So I was going to say, in terms of like a technique or an aspect, I don't know if it would be a cuff or a zipper or whatever. Is there something that technically you really enjoy doing in your sewing?
Ooh. I used to enjoy zippers, and then I just feel like I forgot how to make them, so they're very frustrating. Yeah. Well, not make them, but install them. I like doing like gathers for some reason. Okay. I like doing like sewing across like the little four, like, and then sewing it and then kind of pulling it together. I really like gathers for some reason. I don't know why. I would
think they'd be hard to do.
No, they're really fun and easy. You just have to be really careful not to pull one thread more than the other. And you kind of have to like shuffle the little gathers so they're all balanced. That's fun. I really enjoy pressing. I don't know why. Like a lot of people don't know, but when you sew something, you're supposed to press as the it's really how I learned. You sew, press, serge. So you sew, then you press your stitches, and then you serge off the excess. So I really enjoy kind of just pressing. I really like if I'm working with cotton. I love cotton, obviously, but like denim and like kind of a heavier weight, just how it looks when you press it down. It's just something so releasing to me when I just press my iron down and all the steam comes out and then everything looks so pristine and crisp. Probably comes from my dad. My dad still wears like the crispy pants from the cleaners. So that's probably why. But that's actually one of my favorite things. It's so weird.
I could see that influence there. What kinds of research do you do for your fashions?
Pinterest. Sometimes I'll revert to like older things. I have all those fashion books over there. Really Pinterest. Like if you're inspired to do anything, Pinterest. Right. If someone has thought of that idea, at least in one way or another, and you kind of just look at something that is kind of close, to what you want to do, and then you make it your own.
Right.
Pinterest.
How about sketching? How important is sketching to your designs?
Sketching used to be really, really important, but it's really kind of like a fashion journal to me now. I don't make everything that I sketch. I don't sketch everything that I make.
You keep a journal.
Yeah, but it's like just like croquis in it, and I just kind of go through and like express myself that way. It's very fun. It can be cumbersome, so it's like if I have an idea most of the time now, unless I need to like sketch it out just to make sure it's gonna flow, then I will. But most of the time, I just kind of go with it.
And how do you have a label that you put inside your clothes? How did you handle your signature?
I had my logo made by someone, and so when I do pieces, I do have the logo printed on a tag.
Okay, on the tag. Yeah. What is your creative process, beginning with the time that you get an idea for something?
Ooh, it depends on what I'm working on, but usually my creative process is like, boom, I get an idea. And then it's usually Pinterest. I go, like, how would I work this? Like, that piece is not fashion, obviously. But when I decided I wanted to do that, I played with the different ways I would make it work. I knew I wanted to use a Basquiat crown, so I researched how he did his crown. I researched different ways to do that, and I use a lot of visualizations in my creative process. I'm usually intimidated by my ideas. I scare myself. So what I do is I visualize myself doing it, and then I hype myself up. And usually when I'm to the point where I'm hyped, I'm usually at the store buying things. It doesn't always work out the best. It's a lot of wasted money. Things I'm like, oh, this will never work. And other things turn out pretty good. So that's kind of my creative process. I see what I want, research it, then I visualize, and then I just get the things, and I just kind of go balls to the wall, pretty much.
Well, and fabric, I mean, stores are closing right and left, of course, and so fabric stores are something that they just can't be virtual. Mm. But do you have enough places around?
No, I don't.
That you?
I don't. I actually am more of a Joann is like the only thing. For a while, there was the interior design store, and that just closed, like the interior fabric store on 51st and Memorial. It was like, it was a beautiful place. And I mean, it was meant for interior fabric. So the fabrics were heavier and things like that. But when I was like deconstructing things and doing denim jackets, it was perfect.
Right.
So now I have a problem because I go to Joann's, but like everyone who makes clothes is going to have this fabric. Mm-hmm. So I actually do Mood online. Like, I don't know if you've ever watched Project Runway, but they're like, thank you, Mood. I go to Mood. What I like about Mood is you can get the swatches for like $1. And they'll mail them to you, and you can see kind of what they are.
And you can feel them. And
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I appreciate. And then I go to Dallas a lot, or Colorado. Mm. Colorado has a really good fabric store. I hope they stay open. And it's cheap. Mm. So yeah, you just have to move around and be resourceful.
Right.
That's a lot of the reason why I got into denim, because I just got tired of seeing like, oh, that's cute. And then it's like someone else used that fabric for something else. And I just got tired of going to the same place. Right. And so I was like, I can just use denim. So that's where that started.
So what is your creative routine? Do you work do you try to work mostly weekends, or do you work at night, or do you work in the morning? Or?
I usually work at night. I don't always work on the weekends, because weekends are like just my time to do whatever I want to do, go out or not, or just fraternize or be with my partner. So I usually like this time. Actually, no. Like, I like to create when it's dark for some reason.
And you're done with your day job around 3:30 or something.
Yeah, so usually, unless we have meetings, then I'm usually done about 3:30. So I use that time in between, like the late afternoon, early evening, to kind of just decompress from the day and hang out. And then, I just relax and throw on some music that I love and go for it. Usually, music is a really, really big motivator for me. Mm-hmm. So I'm a Pandora person. I'll just put that. I mean, I know people like Spotify, but Apple Music and Pandora. But Pandora is like that thing you can just put on and walk away and just jam. And so, yeah, I work at night, anywhere between hours of like 9 and 10. Is usually when I start, and then I've had to train myself to not push, but I would be going until like 2 or 3 or all night. I just go until I'm done. But now I've learned like you can't do that.
Right.
So that's that. But I love creating at night. I have like this shirt that I wear. It's like my painting shirt, and I just go for it and just get in the zone, light some incense, and kind of just vibe out. I like to make sure my energies are high, so that nothing negative transfers into my pieces, especially if it's something that if someone is going to wear, but art is something that people live with in one aspect or another. You're either wearing it or it's in your home, occupying space. And I don't want to give something that's contaminated. I want to create something that's giving life instead of draining. So that's really important.
Yeah, and that really fits so well with your artist statement. I love your artist statement about how you want people to receive,
that's
strength and courage from both wearing your clothing and looking at your clothing.
Yes, I actually learned that from my residency. We had to do an artist statement. So
that was. I love yours.
Thank you.
So you're in a new phase of your career so far, but looking back at this fairly short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
What's been an important fork in the road where you could have gone one way, done one thing, and you decided to go this other way?
Every day, honestly. Being an educator is hard, especially someone who doesn't have children. You come at it from a different perspective. I have social work background, so I'm not. I look at it differently. I look at it like, how can I serve the family unit, not just this child, or how are the things at home affecting this child? How are Maslow's hierarchy of needs affecting this child's ability to learn? So it's gotten me in some trouble, but I've never sway away from looking at it that way. I'm always that person. Oh, you don't have a coat? Let's go find you a coat, because, you know, that's on their minds. You know, you haven't eaten since 9 o'clock last night. Let's make sure you get breakfast. You know, and my kids are so young. It's first grade, so they don't have any control of how they get to school. But I still tell them, like, okay, you can't drive yourself to school, or you can't really walk to school yet. But you can make sure you get up when your parents come in your room. Like, that's your responsibility. Or you can help your parents and set your uniform out at night so that you can make sure you get here on time so we can feed you. Because you get here late, you're not going to learn anything until lunchtime. And lunchtime is basically over. The day is done after lunch. So there are so many occasions where I'm reminded of my other talents and my other abilities. But teaching for me is a project of heart. It is so much. I've had to prioritize self-care. I've had to learn how to give myself energy, because it's like, I'm like a cell phone. Like, after I'm taking off that charger in the morning, my battery is being drained. Some things drain me more than others. So I'm learning how to cut those things so that I'm not affected. And then I have to recharge as needed. And so if I don't recharge, I'm not effective. So
that's really well put. So what's been the biggest highlight moment for you so far?
As an educator or an artist?
As an artist.
I would say the biggest highlight moment, I personally love moments where Black people shine in places where they're not supposed to or not expected to shine. I think I told you I was in Rustic Cuff 2 years in a row, no, 3 years, but I placed 2 years in a row. Last year I didn't place. But being in that space and walking that stage, I mean, I won 3rd place. Honestly, I will say it was 3rd place because of I'm Black. I'm just going to put it out there. But being on that stage and occupying that space at that time, those first 2 years that I did it, I was the only Black designer. There was not even Black models unless it was the model that I brought with me. So being that person to kind of pave the way, that was probably the biggest highlight. Not that they recognized me enough to give me a prize, but the fact that this is something that Black people, they didn't expect us to do. Like, it's not an event that Black people go to, really. Like, Rustic Cuff is not really, it used to be, I guess. I mean, it's more of like the Christian people, but like the real life people don't really support that company because it has a lot of things. A lot of things that are a little controversial, a little contradictory. So, to be able to occupy that space and actually like win. People have like tried to diminish and say, "Oh, you didn't win." Well, girl, I got free things. I got my winnings were about $1,400 in gift cards. So hey, that's a win because I would never spend my money there otherwise. So.
And you were a presence there, like you said.
Strong presence. I started noticing like there were more Black models. They actually hired a Black model to help the women. So I like to think that I helped to influence that.
Right. That's fantastic. What's been a low point so far?
Just learning how to do this. Trying to make art a lucrative career is probably the lowest. I wouldn't say the lowest point, but it's the biggest challenge. That's the kind of thing that keeps me from doing it full time, because it's like you want to step out and kind of float on this wave of creativity, but then hopes and dreams and creativity do not pay your bills. And one thing I've noticed, like one thing I will say about Tulsa that I really enjoy is the community of people who do things like artists and whatever your genre is, they support each other. But outside of that little bubble of people who support you, like I know people who make certain types of drinks, people who make shirts, people who are artists. We all kind of get together and we support each other. So the money is circulating in that community, but outside of that community, it's dripping. Like people want you to give them discounts and they expect you to give them things for free. They don't want to pay more than $100 for a piece. And you're like, it took $60 to make this. So what do you expect me to do? So that's kind of, I wouldn't say the lowest point, but it's something that is a challenge.
Right. Well, do you have anything else you'd like to add before we take a look at your work? Anything we didn't cover?
Probably just the pieces. I guess more will come out when we talk about the work. Yeah. But I don't really have anything. I'm still just grateful for this experience.
Oh, it's a lot of fun. We're going to pause it for a minute and take a look at some of your pieces.
Okay.
Okay, so you want to tell us about this Klansman piece?
Oh, so this piece is actually called Not All Cowards Wear Hoods. And it was for a party art show that Black Moon did at the Brady Mansion. I want to say 2018.
Wow.
November. This was the only piece that I presented. And it was just, to me, it was like a past and present piece. Of course, the reference of the hood. We all know how influential that hood is. But also, now, you don't really need a hood to murder someone. You can get away with murder without the hood. Then I did the hands and with a liking to blood because I wanted to make a statement that says you still have blood on your hands. Like you still have to reconcile what you did and what your ancestors did to my ancestors, and take responsibility for what is taking place now because history only repeats itself. And so, and I don't know, I tarnish the hood because white is something that is, being someone who works with fabric, is something that's so pure and something that we work so hard to preserve. And it represents purity. It represents kind of an innocence. And the fact that Klansmen use something white, it showed that they believed that what they're doing is with pure intentions. And so I tarnished that image. Of course, they tarnished their own, but I did it in my work to show, you know, you aren't just a group. You are murderers. You are people who have been infused with hatred and been allowed to be active. And we are saying that in this generation, it's not acceptable and it's not okay. And we do remember. And there will be atonement. So that's that piece.
Thank you. All right. How about this shirt?
So this one is like a reference to, or my version of a dashiki.
Okay.
Dashikis are, they're coming back, but they were really prominent in the 60s and 70s, and they come from Africa. Just, I don't even know if it's really like known as a dashiki in Africa. It's just like their traditional wear. I think that's more of an Americanized term. But this is utilizing Ankara fabric, which comes mainly from Ghana. And it's not terribly expensive, but it comes like with this wax and it's very stiff to work with. And so just using that reference to kind of make it my own. Like I said, it's becoming very popular, almost like a trend. But I wanted to do kind of my own thing. So in the process, like, I played with them and made like crop tops out of them and things like that. And so that's kind of just something that I was doing really heavily like during the summer and kind of just playing with that idea. And cool. I love the colors and the shapes and just everything. It kind of has a lot going on, but it's also, this particular fabric is very calming and soothing, but it has a lot happening on it.
It does. So. All right. So how about these two pieces?
Okay, this one is my newest piece. It's called Balance. It's really fun. It is a mixed media piece. This is an acrylic paint pour. I pretty much just bought a kit and used all the colors. I like how when you're pouring, you never really know what colors are going to be more dominant or prominent in the piece.
Right.
So I just love how it has like this galaxy thing because that's kind of what I was going for. I use the triangle to represent women in femininity. And of course, it's a black triangle because I'm a black woman. This is a reference to my spiritual journey. I spoke earlier about how I grew up in a very Christian home and I had that influence, but now I'm kind of on my own journey of spirituality. So these actually represent the chakras. And instead of using like a color to represent like a deep purple or a clear to represent the crown chakra, I use Basquiat's crown. He's very influential in contemporary art. He's still referenced very heavily. And it kind of resonates with me. So there's actually gold leafing on the crown. And then I actually use glass beads with that. And it's a glitter resin pour on top. So I like that piece. I've gotten a lot of feedback. It's the first thing I've done since I've gotten back into it and come off of my sabbatical. So it was like a passion piece. It wasn't really for anything. It just happened to be right before we had a show. So I got to present that one for the first time last Friday.
Oh, great.
This one is actually fabric. And I've had it framed. This piece is not really an original. And it's got a lot going on, but actually it was the first piece that I've ever done. But it's actually a picture of it that I recalibrated and had printed on fabric. And the reason why this one is so special to me, not only is the first one I've done, but I actually took electronics and broke them up. And I had like pictures from magazines. Like if you get close, you can see like right there, that's a picture that's like a remote that I actually glued onto the canvas. And then I had pictures from like fashion industry, and I actually called this fashion industry because it has like all these industrial pieces on it. And the reason why it's so special is because the original was actually destroyed by my abusive ex. He actually took the canvas apart, punched a hole. He said that there were demons on it or something. So when I left that relationship, all I had of that piece was a picture. But I wanted to give that picture, the piece, new life. So I got on Spoonflower and started playing with things. So now it's called Kaleidoscope because it has like that feeling of like when you look at something.
That's a great name.
Yeah, in the kaleidoscope, those pieces kind of look like that. So that's what this is. It's really special to me. So.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your time today, Erica.
Thank you. This is great.